Whether you're picking and grinning or just grinning, grab a drink, pull up a seat. It's time for Roots Music Rambler. Turn it up. So tell me about the American Music Festival at Fitzgerald's. Looks like you had a blast and met a few people.
Oh my goodness. It was the best 4 days of the summer for me. Yes, it was so fun, and the talents and the shows and just the people and the fun and the community, everything about it was just so fun. Saw a lot of really good acts, some artists that were new to me, some I've been listening to for some time. Did get to meet a couple of those artists, which was, had me walking on clouds. But yeah, it was really spectacular. And part of what I like the most, I think, about American Music Festival at Fitzgerald's is the accessibility of the artists. Well, most of them, after their sets, you could see the artists in the crowd watching the other musicians, and I'm not one to just go up to someone and just talk to them. Someone like, a favorite singer-songwriter. Number one, I believe it or not, I'm kind of shy. Number two, I don't want to bother them, but I did approach Margot Silker when I saw her outside Fitzgerald's after her set. And because during her set, she started playing, she mentioned a song about fishing. And I shouted out, "Oh, steelhead trout." And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, of course I know that one, because I like to fly fish." Okay, whatever. So after the show, when I saw her outside, I was like, "Hey, I'm the one that got really excited when you started playing steelhead trout." And she's like, "Oh, that's so great, this and that." And then we started talking about fly fishing. And, she is originally from California. She still lives out there. She does fish frequently, it sounds like, or when she has the time. And so I told her about my last fly fishing adventure, which sadly was almost 5 years ago, but it was on the Snake River in Idaho, and I could not remember the name of the lodge. So she's like, "Well, I think you're going to have to write to me and tell it to me later." And I'm like, "You better believe it." So I did. And we sent a couple messages back and forth. But she's so great. She was so fun to talk to. And my friend Lindsay was with me, and she told Lindsay that maybe she should go along with them on their tour because their next stop was the Twin Cities. And Lindsay has spent a lot of time there. So she was just throwing out, restaurant recommendations and stuff. And Margot was just like, "Oh my goodness, this is a lot of info." I'm like, "Yeah, fly fishing, restaurants, we got you." So it was a lot of fun. And then on the 4th of July, one of the headliners was the Waco Brothers, and with John Langford. And he is such a character. I think we've talked about him before, but after his set, we were outside and we talked to him again. And yeah, he's a party. He's a fun time, that guy, that John Dennis Langford.
Okay. Well, it's speaking of artists in the crowd watching other artists. At the same time you were at the American Music Festival, I was at Roostertail, which is the music festival associated with the Madison Regatta in Madison, Indiana, which is obviously a big, professional boat race on the Ohio River. My friend Joe Ray Thornberry and he came up and we went to Roostertail, which, featured Blackberry Smoke and 49 Winchester and Wyatt Flores and several others that I got to see. But the one thing that really struck me was when Silverado went on, which is the new name of Mike and the Moon Pies. So if you're familiar with Mike and the Moon Pies, they've changed their name to Silverado. And when they took the stage, like almost all of the artists came out from their trailers and from behind the backstage area and just stood in the crowd. Taylor Honeycutt was out there and people were coming up to some of them, taking pictures and probably asking for autographs and whatnot, but it didn't matter. They were there to see Silverado. And I thought that was very telling about how impactful and how good Mike and the Moon Pies / Silverado really is. And it was my first time seeing them live. They were fantastic, as you would imagine. And so that's an interesting tell to me.
Yeah.
When other artists, even if it's the opening acts, if they come out and stand in the crowd with you at a festival, it says something about the people on stage. That was a big deal. So had a great time there. Got to meet a couple of the guys from 49 Winchester. Long stories that I'll probably go into at some point further down the road on the show. But it was a fantastic weekend. And then as we record this, a week ago tonight, I was in Indianapolis, Indiana for my Marcus King show with my son Grant. And we upgraded and did the whole VIP experience. And oh my goodness, like not only did they ushered us in for the VIP experience, and they promised the part of the upgrade was you get an acoustic set before the show. What they didn't explain was you walk in, there's a mic and a chair sitting in front of the stage on the floor, like against the rail where you would stand for the concert. And Marcus comes out, sits at the chair with the microphone, with his guitar, and sings, and you make a semicircle around him. Like I could have reached out and taken his hat off his head while he was playing Save Me, and it was mind blowing.
Oh my goodness.
So we got to meet him. We got our picture with him. I think they gave out autographed posters. So if you're a Marcus King fan and you're tempted to do the VIP upgrade, do it. It's well worth it. It was amazing. And then after that, I mean, we could have left at that point and been perfectly happy with our evening. He just blew the roof off the joint, as he always does. Great show. Grant was he had a blast and loves Marcus King too. So it was a really good kind of father-son thing for us. And we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. So
nice.
Good stuff.
Very
Welcome
nice.
to Roots Music Rambler. She's Frank.
He's Falls.
And we're rambling on through the stories behind the music we love.
And today on the show, we kind of have like a big get, you know. We've mentioned Kimmi Bitter and her new album, Old School, which debuted at #1 on the alt country charts back in March. It spent 4 weeks in the #1 spot, and she kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think she had like 2,000 subscribers on Spotify at the time. She's based in San Diego and had been releasing some singles for a while, but cut and released the album in March, and it had like an immediate impact, and for good reason. The title of the album is Old School, and you'll hear some of the music. We're going to play some of the songs during the show. You'll hear Old School for sure. And she is old school. Like she wears, like Nancy Sinatra is her sort of fashion, North Star. She wears the go boots and the kind of the mini shirt onesie dresses. She does her hair and makeup and everything like a 60s go dancer. And her music is Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn, 1960s traditional country music. And it's really fantastic. She reminds me, or the first thing I thought of when I heard her and saw her kind of branding, which we've talked about on the show before, is, and I think I've mentioned this before, she's like the female answer to Charlie Crockett. Like those two should be on a bill together.
Yeah, you did say that. I remember when you did your 60-second review for Old School. And she definitely gives off major Patsy Cline vibes. And I know you probably really like the song My Grass is Blue.
Yes, I do.
I had a feeling.
I like that one. That's a good one. It's not really about Kentucky, but I do have a bone to pick with her, though, on this album. And if you've listened to this show for a long time, you'll know exactly what bone I'm going to pick with her if you've heard her music. I'll save that for the interview. I am going to politely object to one thing on the album, and then hopefully she'll take it well. I'm not going to be critical of her, but I just need to let her know this is information she has to have.
I know.
Yeah. So we'll get to that in a second.
It just occurred to me. Yep.
Yeah.
I got it.
Also on the show, we're going to do our normal Pickin Grinnin segment and share our picks for whose music is making us grin. They might be new artists, might be old, but they'll sure be good. Before we kick it all off, though, Francesca, you posed an interesting question before we started talking, and I said, wait, let's just talk about that on the show because that's a good one.
Well, I was inspired by a recent discussion that we had on a recently published episode with Jackson Pines. So you were talking about the experience you had posting a meme or whatever in a Facebook music group and people getting all bent out of shape about, vinyl versus vinyls or records and whatnot. So I, in my teacher/reading nerd Facebook groups, came across a somewhat similar discussion about audiobooks. And it seems like there are two very strongly held opinions about audiobooks. Like any kind of reading is considered reading, including audiobooks. And then there are people on the other side who are like, no, listening to an audiobook, not holding a physical copy, is cheating. And admittedly, I used to be in the camp of, no, you need to hold the physical book. But that was before I had kids and worked full time with kids. And, and that's why I wasn't able to do a lot of reading in my free time because I didn't have any free time, right? To actually sit and read. And then I started listening to audiobooks. And now I'm like addicted. I think I mentioned it on a show, one of our episodes ages ago, too. And, as a literature teacher or just a teacher, my view now is if you're hearing a story and it's making you think and react and it's causing you to ask questions or, it interests you enough to go looking for further information and whatever format it arrives to you, it's reading, right? It's considered to me, it is considered reading. All right. So maybe not think of reading so literally, but you're still experiencing the story as the author meant it to be experienced. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, it does. And I agree with you on that. I'm always going to be against anyone who wants to put up artificial rules on what qualifies as one thing or another. For me, it's all about comprehension. If you're hearing the story or you're reading the story, or even I'll go as far as to say if you're watching the movie. Now, obviously, movie interpretations of books, there's a big gap there.
Right.
But if an audiobook is read word for word to you and you comprehend things auditorially better than you do with reading retention, because some people learn and take in information differently. I actually am one of those people. If I hear something out loud, it registers with me better. So I actually prefer audiobooks in a lot of ways. Now,
Yes.
I will read a physical book,
Yeah.
but my attention span is not always great with that. And if I have an audiobook, then I can do other things and still be comprehending the story. I think it's all about comprehension for me. And certainly I think people comprehend audiobooks that prefer audiobooks and learn that way, prefer that better. So your up tighty whiteys there on the old Facebook groups can just stick a sock in it. So there you go.
Yeah. What he said.
Yeah. Speaking of sticking socks in it, we're sipping on a bourbon and I'm out. So we're going to take a quick break for a refill. Take a moment, if you will, and listen to more about the awesome sponsors that help make this show happen, including Musk Ox Flannels. They are fantastic. You go to gomuskox.com/Rambler. Use the code Rambler. You get a 10% discount. More on that coming up here as the sponsor message plays in just a second. When we come back, the freshest old sounding artist in country music is with us. Old school Kimmi Bitter joins us on the program, and listen for the music coming back from break. We think you'll agree. She is old school in a very good way. Don't go away. This is Roots Music Rambler. Hey, Ramblers, I have experienced a revolution in sound in my house, and you can too. The revolution is driven by Sonos. The Sonos wireless music system lets you play any song in any room, control it all with the Sonos app on your phone or tablet. Sonos has all the connections to give you millions of songs and stations, including connecting to your iTunes, your Spotify, Pandora, and more. Get a wireless Sonos player and hear the sound quality difference. Then get one for all the rooms in your house where you listen, but might be out of reach of the stereo or Bluetooth speaker you normally use. So I've got one in my bedroom and bathroom for when I get ready in the morning. I've got one in the kitchen and living room for when I'm hanging out with friends. And then down here in the office den for when I'm working or setting up for another episode of the show. I happen to like the Sonos Move, which is one of the speaker models. I can put it out on my patio for cookouts. It's a weather-resistant design, has an 11-hour battery life, so I don't need to plug it in out there when I have people over for cookouts or tailgates or whatever. And I can play music on all or just a few of the speakers, so I never lose my jams going from room to room. Try the Move and hear the difference, then hook up all the rooms in your house for an excellent listening experience while you move around cleaning or dancing or whatever you do in the privacy of your own home. Listen to Roots Music Rambler on it, for God's sakes. It makes me sound even more handsome. Go to rootsmusic.link/Sonos, S-O-N-O-S, rootsmusic.link/Sonos. That'll take you right to the Sonos Move speaker page to purchase. I highly recommend it, and you'll love how much better your music and podcasts sound. Go to rootsmusic.link/Sonos. That's rootsmusic.link/Sonos.
I'm just a dang fool for that old school. Take me back to the tried and true sound of rhythm and blues. I tell you, old sound that's fast and loose and sweet and round. It's got a lot of rhythm in its soul. A time one to Jackson sang, and every guitar had a twang, and Elvis played a thing called rock and roll. I'm just a dang fool for that old school. Take me back to the track.
The song is called Old School. The album is also called Old School. And in a way, both throw down the gauntlet a bit on what country music used to sound like and that it's coming back. The artist is Kimmi Bitter, and we are quite lucky to have her with us on Roots Music Rambler. I'm tongue-tied. I'm so excited. Kimmi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
We are great, and I'm just giddy that you're here. This is so cool. The album, it was kind of, I will ask all these questions here in a second, but I remember seeing the album debuted, I think, at number 1 on the alt country charts, which I keep an eye on. And I was like, what is this? And I went over to Spotify, found it, saw the cover art, and went, if this sounds like what this looks like, this is going to be fantastic. And I hit play, and I haven't stopped listening to the damn thing since. So really excited to have you here. So thanks for coming.
I'm happy to be here. So thanks for the invite.
Awesome. So I guess the first thing that we probably should ask you to get past my fanboying here and get into the interview. What's the last few months been like for you? Because this album really seemed to explode back in March. I think you spent 4 weeks atop the alt country charts. And at least from a national perspective, I don't think at that point before the album came out, a whole lot of people nationally knew who you were. Is there something we don't know, or has it all been kind of crazy for you too?
The album got a lot of recognition, which was really nice, but it's been a gradual climb. I've been doing this for a while. I've been on the road pretty nonstop for the past 4 or 5 years, but it was definitely nice for the album. And I hadn't released a debut album yet. So I had released a couple singles, and the one that kind of sparked some attention and kind of broke me out of my local scene was My Grass is Blue. And so once that got a little bit of attention, the guy I wrote it with, and who's also the producer and co-writer of the entire album, the Old School album, we just thought, well, maybe there's other people like us that love old school country. Let's just do a whole album. Like people are responding well to it, and this is what we love. So we did that, and we worked on it for maybe a year and a half, put it out, and then all independent grassroots, and it did start getting a bit of a buzz. And so there's a lot more to grow, of course, and continue onward. But I'm very grateful for what happened and the recognition it has gotten. And we just got back from a 3-month tour and promoting this album. So it has been a little crazy, but I'm here for it.
So you told us a little bit about how the singles came together, but you've been dropping singles for a little bit, and then the album just kind of came together. Was that the plan, or, was it a plan all along, or did you to just drop the album in such a big way?
I wasn't planning on doing an album. I wasn't even sure if I was having a lot of self-doubt with music in the time that I wrote My Grass is Blue. So I've been doing this old school country thing for a hot second, and it didn't really get any attention. And I'd been traveling the country and just really slowly gaining traction with people. So that wasn't the plan. I was just like, we're just going to do singles. But then once My Grass is Blue got initially basically discovered by Saving Country Music. And then once that happened, the ball started rolling. And then we'd already released a whole bunch of singles, or maybe 2, not a whole bunch, but maybe 2 or 3. And so we're like, let's just finish this up and make a whole album, like a concept album that's called Old School, and is, captures my heroes and idols of a time that I thought was really cool, and that music was peaking.
Nice. One of the things I noticed about you and the album right away, and I mentioned this a few minutes ago, and this is the byproduct of my day job as a marketing consultant, is that you have a very, very clearly defined and tight look and feel. In the marketing world, that's called having a strong brand or having strong branding. When people see pictures of you, the record and such, it looks like 1960s country. It sounds like 1960s country. I think that plays a role in how the record has been received and is probably partially responsible for the explosion. If I'm not mistaken, that's not some big record company's work, right? That's you. Is that right?
It is. Yes, I do I do it all. I'm my booking agent, I'm my publicist, I'm the graphic designer and the website. And I think that that's common for a lot of people nowadays. Kind of have to wear all the hats. And if you want it really bad, you'll learn all the skills. And so, yeah, but I do in 2020, when everything had shut down, I have a really obsessive personality with when um, I'm obsessed with the 1960s, but in 2020, when everything shut down and we had time on our hands, I got obsessed with Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. So I learned a lot of skills through just having time on my hand on that. And I'm always trying to I look at and study like old photography and I try to imitate it, even though I'm using modern tools like Photoshop and Illustrator. And the photos are most of the time digital, trying to see like, how can I get those old looks? And then I'm obsessed with the fashion of it. So, that it all ties in together and I love the branding part of it.
The branding is strong. Very strong branding game there. So does all of this expertise come from a different career, or was it something like you mentioned you taught yourself Adobe and some other stuff during the pandemic, but is this what you did while you built your music career?
I just learned it out of necessity for trying to look professional as a musician. And yeah, I didn't learn it in a different career prior to music. I just learned it out of necessity for music. And I actually do enjoy it. So
Nice. Well, if the music career doesn't wind up working out, I'm sure somebody's going to be able to see this and go, "Hey, you come be brand director for me."
Yeah.
We're going to dig a little bit deeper here in the musical roots of Kimmi Bitter after the break, but we want to get more of that great music in people's ears first. We're going to go to break with a tune called Aquamarine. It was winner of Song of the Year in San Diego last year, and now one of the cuts on Old School. Here's more Kimmi Bitter. This is Roots Music Rambler.
We'll be so far from shore, out in the waters warm. Come drift away with me, aquamarine. We'll sail into the blue, under the harvest moon, out in Honolulu Bay. That's where I want to stay. I've got no worries, I know no time. We're in no hurry to get back to life. Right from the start, I've always been a cowboy kind of girl. I got a country heart, it's down home as many pearl. I got no sympathy for the symphony. I like a man who listens to Merle. I am always be a cowboy kind of girl. Ain't no harm today, the boy on the farm who knows how to wear them boots. I prefer a bolo tie to a Wall Street guy decked out in orange.
How can you not love that sound? That's Cowboy Kind of Girl from Kimmi Bitter from her album Old School. Kimmi is with us on Roots Music Rambler this week. So let's dig in a little bit deeper here, Kimmi. You're not only playing songs many would call pure country, you've frequently been compared to Patsy Cline. Your band, West Side Twang, adds to that. They've been compared to the Jordanaires, Patsy's backing band. You hail from San Diego, which to those of us on the east part of the country don't necessarily correlate much with country music. So where does this sound and proclivity for old school country come from for you?
I don't have a cool story for it. I just love like the country politan era. And I wanted to recreate it. And to me, Patsy Cline, and specifically the work with the Jordanaires, then with Elvis as well, is something I'm very passionate about. And that's just a lost art and music. And I love it. So I wanted to bring it back. And that's the simple reason of, I guess, why it gets those kind of comparisons. But they're a huge influence, obviously.
Good
Is
enough.
is that like Patsy Cline? Is that the kind of music you grew up with? Was the country influence from parents or friends, or did you kind of migrate that way as you got older and explored more music?
Yeah, I migrated that way as I got older and explored music. I don't have I don't have a musical family. I'm the only one that does it, and I was a total late bloomer to discovering old school music. Like I don't even think I knew who the Beatles were till I was 17 or 18. And then once I
Oh,
I know, I know, it's shocking. And once I discovered that, I just kind of went down the rabbit hole. And country's always suited my voice well. I loved country female singers of the 90s. But once I backtracked even further and discovered the female singers of the 50s and the 60s, that's where my voice really wanted to sit.
so I think I read somewhere you talking about that sort of exploration to find your voice and the style of music that fits your voice best. I have no singing talent at all, so I would have no earthly clue how to understand that. I can't do that, but I'm curious, how would you describe to someone who's ignorant like me how you find your voice, and what about this song, these eras, these songs fits your voice versus other eras? I need to comprehend that better.
I don't even know how to answer that. I don't know how you find your voice. I guess for me, I'm not a classically or professionally trained singer. It's just all been through trial and error. And I was not always a good singer. It's a skill I learned, and I always had music and singing in my heart, but I had to really work at it and find out. I don't know, everybody's voice is different. So you just got to find what I guess feels good to you. And to me, it feels really natural to sing songs in the style of a Patsy Cline as kind of ballad, in that kind of a range that she has is similar to my range. So I don't know. I don't know how you find your voice. For me, it was just through trial and error and many years of doing it.
Well, I can't write songs like Tom Waits, but I sure as shit can sing like him. So I think I got a future in this
There
business.
you go. Yeah.
Well, it's worked for Kimmi. It's worked out for her. So I guess a part of finding your voice, let's talk a little bit about the country scene in San Diego. So I imagine there's plenty of like Tejano and Latin influence in the music there. And of course, we know California is well known for the Bakersfield sound, but that's not exactly close to San Diego. So what is this scene like?
San Diego scene is cool. I feel like country music is really on the upswing and getting really popular right now, and especially the throwback alt country scene, Americana music. And the coast are always kind of the forefronts for setting a lot of trends. And so San Diego is up and ready. They're ready for it. And yeah, it's cool. It's definitely not a huge country scene by any means, but there is a crew of people, and when I play, the people come out in their cowboy boots and they're ready to dance, and it's a good old time.
That's great.
Nice.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. We obviously have, Francesca's in Chicago, which has a really great music scene, a lot of blues, but a little bit of everything. And then I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. So I'm in the middle of like bluegrass, alt country worlds, not too far from Nashville either. But it's great to hear that the influences are out there on the different coasts and whatnot. We're talking to Kimmi Bitter, whose album Old School caught fire after its release in March and has inserted her into the top new artist conversations for 2024. Let's jump out for a quick break to hear more of this great album. We'll go to break with My Grass is Blue. Tell me it doesn't sound like Patsy Cline, kids. This is Roots Music Rambler.
My grass is blue. That's how it grows since I lost you. My grass is blue. I met him in Kentucky at an old saloon. He was bowing fiddle with a band. He kissed me underneath the Appalachian that night when he became my man. Two hearts singing. You're the kind of woman that takes whatever she wants. I don't know why you think you got the right. You prance around this old town like a denim debutante, and I see where your sights are set tonight. So get those hands where I can see 'em. I'm making a stand. There might be no loss, but get your paws off of my man. Girl, I've seen your type before at 100 other bars. Get those hands where I can see 'em. You'll be seeing stars.
I love that. That is Kimmi Bitter with Get Your Hands Where I Can See 'Em. It's from her outstanding new album, Old School. We've got links to it on Spotify and her website in the show notes. And Kimmi Bitter, her own self, is joining us for the show this week. Okay, Kimmi, I lose my membership card if I don't point this out to you, but I have a slight issue of concern to share with you, and I think it will help you as you branch out and do more shows on the eastern side of the country, especially in the region where I'm from. We pronounce it Appalachia. If someone says Appalachia, we immediately dismiss them as being Yankees and outsiders and run them out of town. For the record, soft criticism. I still love the songs, the album, and you, but being from there, I lose my membership card if I don't point it out. It's Appalachia.
Well, it is true. I'm not from there. I am an outsider. So
That's fair. Well, hopefully that will help. And on that note, I know you're playing some dates in the coming weeks in Texas and Oklahoma in the fall. We are dying for you to come further east. What are the prospects looking like for more dates coming this way?
I really want to make it out there. I think as far east as I'm getting this year for 2024 is Nashville for Americana Fest, which is September. I might have an Alabama date, and yeah, but I want to make it out there too. I book everything myself, so it's just kind of uncharted territory for me. So I'm trying to make it out that way, but just for the record, whoever's listening, I would love help if anybody's out there.
Well, I can tell you this. I am immediately going to start emailing the festival promoters and whatnot that I don't know them real personally, but I'm going to start pounding some inboxes because I'd love to see. Louisville's got like 16 freaking festivals. So I'd love to see you here, of course. I know Francesca would love to see you in Chicago, but we'll certainly do what we can to get the word out and get you over here.
That would be amazing.
Luckily, Jason and I, just by doing this, and probably even before, we know a couple of people that we could, we'd be happy to introduce you to, so you can come out here and play, because that would be great. And so then that leads to the next question. If you are playing, like, how do the crowds react at your shows? Like, you're not the typical, like, your voice and your sound isn't what we hear on country music radio nowadays. And you dress the part. So are people delighted, confused? What kind of reactions have you gotten?
Everything possible. I've gotten all the reactions. People like it, but then I also do get a lot of crap for it definitely is not how people normally dress nowadays. So it can come off, I understand how it can come off as gimmicky, but it's just what I love. And I love that fashion and I love those sounds. And that's who I am and want to be, truly and authentically. But I've gotten so many reactions and I don't know. Does it even matter? I just got to do what I love. And I know there'll be other people that love it too.
Well,
and I love that you said that. And you said the magic word, right? Authentic. That's who you are. And that's awesome.
Well, and this retro country thing is happening though. When I first saw and heard your album, my first immediate thought was, she should open for Charlie Crockett, or Charlie Crockett should open for her, because that bill is like, boom, that's 1967 country music right there, visually and everything else. You two would make a hell of a flashback experience for our parents' generation. They'd think they were watching a Porter Wagner variety show or something. I can't imagine this was calculated, but the two of you, Sierra Farrell to a degree, Coulter Wall, that sound is really trendy. Why do you think that is?
I guess I can only speak for myself. Like, I don't resonate with top 40 sounding music. And I think music has gotten generally watered down and washed out for people that have grown up in my generation. And when I hear Led Zeppelin for the first time, or Patsy Cline, or the Beatles, whoever it is, I just love them and I'm obsessed. And I listen to like almost exclusively music from a different time. And I can only speak for myself, but I think there's just other people in my generation that want something with a little bit more substance and vibe, and maybe doesn't all sound exactly the same.
This is what they're doing back home. Their hands are, amen, amen, sister, you preach it. So
For sure. And it speaks to that authenticity again as well. So speaking of authenticity, then Jason kind of touched on the tour plans. Can you tell us a little bit more about your music plans? We know supporting a new album is kind of a long haul project, but some artists also capitalize on that immediate attention and start firing off new music. So what's in the hopper for you in the next few months?
It's a balance between touring. I live for touring. I love it. I love playing live most of all. It's a balance between that and creating new music. And I just got back from a 10-week run nonstop across the western half states of the Mississippi just about 48 hours ago. And I am ready to start a new one. I've got to like switch gears into creative mode. And then we'll go back out in September too. But I know I have the month of August to start thinking about it. And Michael Gurley is the guy who produced and really the first, I've been trying to make an album like this for so long. I've had so many failed attempts. And Michael Gurley was the first person that understood my vision and didn't compromise it. Like, we were going to do a tried and true sounding album, and whether or not it's radio friendly or not. And turned out it kind of was. But so we're already talking about doing our next one. And yeah, come winter, we'll be in writing mode. And I don't know when it'll be done, but I hope it won't take much longer than a year.
Well, whatever, whenever, we can't wait. We absolutely love old school and are thrilled to have you on the show. We want to have you back in a year or so to talk about the new album, or when you're the biggest star in country music, we'll have you back then too. So don't forget us little folks on the way up. But seriously, Kimmi, thank you so much for being here. It's just absolutely been a thrill to have you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Let's play it out with another cut from the album Old School by Kimmi Bitter. This one is one of my favorites. I Can't Unlove You. She's Kimmi Bitter. Come back after the break, gang. Pickin Grinnin is next. Don't go away. This is Roots Music Rambler.
I can't unlove you, no matter how hard I try. I can't unremember your eyes and how they shine so blue. And every night, dear, your kisses still haunt me so, though you no longer want me so. I can't unlove you.
I hope I didn't embarrass everyone by fanboying with Kimmi Bitter too much, but this was cool. It was great having her on the show. So did I embarrass you?
Oh, no, I'm not embarrassed at all.
Okay.
No.
Did I embarrass myself? All right. Jesus.
No. It's okay. Lord knows I have done my share of fangirling, so it's quite all right.
Well, if people go back and listen to the Digby episode, you'll see me and hear me fanboy like crazy there. So
Yeah.
I don't think I was that bad with Kimmi, but I was just, to be honest with you, because of the success of the album and whatnot, I just see her as being a rising star in the country and or alt country scene. And I feel like, we keep our fingers crossed that the guests we have that are not really discovered yet will become discovered. And I think she's got as good a shot as anybody we've interviewed so far to wind up being big. And so
Yes.
just having her on the show, it's just a big thrill. So, and the album's really freaking good. So go check out the links in the show notes. It's called Old School by Kimmi Bitter. If you have any proclivity toward old school country music, you're going to absolutely love this thing. So go listen to it on Spotify, prove it out, and then go get the album or the CD or however you purchase music to support those artists, because she's still independent, does everything by herself, as you heard. So go get that Kimmi Bitter. She's great. I loved having her on the show. It is time for our Pickin Grinnin segment. This is where Frank and I tell you our picks for who's making us grin listening to music. This week, might be old artists, might be new artists, but it'll sure be good. And I will do the honors this week, Frank, and preserve some integrity in your thought process, because I have a really good one to share. So I'll go first.
All right. All right.
So my Pickin Grinnin is actually, by the time this episode airs, I will have seen him live, because he is opening up next week as we record this. Next week, I'm going to see the aforementioned Charlie Crockett play here in Louisville, Kentucky at the Iroquois Amphitheater. And the act opening for him that night is Nat Myers. Now, Nat Myers is Louisville based, but during COVID, he, came home and started, playing around, writing music. He's kind of a blues guitarist. I think he calls himself a blues poet, which I like. And he came home and started writing and putting music up on social media. Well, that music and the social media posts caught the eye of one Mr. Dan Auerbach, who we've talked about extensively on this show, the lead singer and one of the two members of the Black Keys, who has the now, growing in fame Easy Eye Sound Records and One Eye Studio, I think is the name of his place in Nashville. So Auerbach reaches out to this Nat Myers kid, literally a kid, like teenager probably at the time, in Louisville, Kentucky, invites him down to write music with him and Pat Laughlin, who I saw play mandolin for John Prine once, who's a great Nashville songwriter, and blues legend Alvin Youngblood Hart. And so they put together his first album. Nat Myers' first album is called Yellow Peril. And the first cut that I listened to on this album, I thought I was listening to like Leadbelly or Robert Johnson or something. I was like, whoa, this is a different sound than I expected. And it's really, really good. And I'm not just saying that because he's from Louisville. He's good. He's just really good. Good music. So Nat Myers, will make sure there's links in the show notes to his music. And he's my Pickin Grinnin this week. All right, Frank, what you got?
All right. Well, so we talked in the beginning of the show about American Music Festival at Fitzgerald's. And, a lot of artists I had already known were playing, some of my favorites. But what I love the most about this type of festival is the opportunity to discover new to me artists, and in a very intimate sort of setting. So I do believe it was the last day of the festival. So day 4, and I was just exhausted, but I'm like, it's the last day. So I'm going to go at the beginning and I'm going to stay till the end because I want to see everyone. And I did. And one performer, artist, singer, songwriter that really stood out to me is a woman by the name of Annie Mac. And she is from the Twin Cities. I know she's from Minnesota. I believe it's the Twin Cities. And she just has this aura and this presence. And, you can't not pay attention to what she's saying and singing. And, you can't not, and when she's playing and singing, you can't not stand still. She is just, her voice, she's very soulful. And, I just enjoyed her music tremendously. And she is so funny. She was cracking jokes and talking about, I don't even know. There was one joke she said about, the right thing you have to say, so you're not sleeping on the couch tonight or something like that. And, she was just great. And I enjoyed her set. And that was one of my great finds at Fitzgerald's.
Annie Mac, huh?
Annie Mac.
Okay. Well, we'll look her up and make sure that there's links to her in the old show notes. I'm looking forward to checking that out. Sounds really interesting. I know I saw, all your posts, obviously, on the Instagrams and the Facebooks and wherever else you posted about the music festival there at the old Fitzgerald's, and it looked like you had a blast and there was a lot of good music there. So I actually, just kind of give everybody a little bit of a teaser sneak peek, I saw several new artists at Roostertail, which I talked about a little bit earlier in the show, that I'll be sharing over the course of the next few weeks. So some really, really good stuff. Had a great time and got to see some new artists there. So I'm excited about sharing that with you as well.
Same
cool.
here.
That's going to...
No, I was going to say same here. Like I was going through, as you were talking, my mental list of new artists that I discovered at American Music Festival, and I'm trying to decide which one to mention first. So yes, I will have a list as well to work off of.
Yeah, that's good. By the way, I'm holding in my very hand we're at the point in our lifespan, we're almost a year old. I'm holding in my very hand the renewal papers for our music licensing. We are officially licensed through ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. So the music we play on this show is appropriately compensated. Royalties are paid to the artists appropriately because of the dues that we pay to do that. So please do support the show, because we got to pay those bills for those things. So go over to the Roots Music Rambler store, get yourself a hat, get yourself a shirt. We got stickers. I love them stickers.
Oh yes, the stickers are a big hit.
And they are a big hit. And tell your friends about the show. We're not going to ask you for money unless you're going to get something in return. But if you tell your friends about the show, and more of your friends listen to the show, then we have the opportunity to maybe even have some more advertisers that support us. And that's going to help us offset these costs, which we love using our funds to support the artists. So we're almost a year old. We'll be talking more about our 1 year anniversary of the show here in a few weeks, I'm sure. But I paid the bills. We're paying the artists. We're putting money in their pocket. So it's all good. We're all good there. Roots Music Rambler is a production of Falls and Partners, copyright 2024. Our theme music is Sheepskin and Beeswax by Gentacorum. Join us online at rootsmusicrambler.com and make sure you mash that subscribe or follow button so you remember to join us for the next Hoe-Down and Throwdown. She's Frank.
He's Falls.
And whatever you do, kids, ramble on.